In this video, we'll be adding and subtracting polynomials. So when adding polynomials, the most important thing that we need to remember is that we can only add terms together that have like terms. So essentially what this means is they need to have identical variable parts. So we're looking for items that are identical variable parts to add together. Now, down below here, you see an example, and we see that we have parentheses. Now remember, out in front of these parentheses, we really have our imaginary ones. So if you need to, because these are ones, it's a little bit easier, but you're just gonna distribute those ones out. So this becomes 2x cubed minus 5x squared plus 1x. And then here, this would just become plus 2x squared plus 1x cubed. And then you can do minus 1 or plus negative 1, however your brain best looks at that. So what we're looking for from here is we're looking for identical variable parts. So when I look at this, what I see is this one has an x cubed and this one has an x cubed. So when we are combining and adding together polynomials, we're going to combine like terms. So here we have 2x cubes and we have 1x cubed for a total of 2 plus 1, 3x cubed. Then I'm going to look at, okay, I have 5x squareds or negative 5x squareds and 2x squareds. Now, if you're nervous about making a mistake, this is where keep, change can be your friends. We know we have negative 5x squared and a positive 2x squared. Those combine together to be a negative 3x squared. And then finally here we have 1x. There's nothing else that looks like the 1x. It's the only one that has a plain x, so that would be plus 1x. And then over here, we have just a plain negative 1. Again, there's nothing that has no variables besides the negative 1. So that's all that can combine together. Now, the really important piece here is that you note that x cubed, x squared, and x, while they all contain x's, because their variable parts are not identical, they cannot be combined together further. They are stuck there. They can't be added because x cubed is different than x squared, which is different than x. So now let's take a look at subtracting polynomials, which is very, very similar to adding polynomials. So here again, we see that we have, some parentheses and some distributions that need to take place. So here we're going to distribute a positive 1 out. So that's a pretty easy distribution. So we have negative 2x cubed. I'm going to use keep, change here. So I have plus 9x squared plus 4x and plus negative 16. Then from here, I see that I have another 1 to distribute, but this time it has a negative in front of it. So I want to make sure that I multiply everything inside of the second parenthesis by negative 1. So here we have negative 1 times negative 4, which is a positive 4x to the fourth. Negative 1 times x cubed, which is a negative 1x cubed. Negative 1 times negative 9, which is a positive 9x squared. And then negative 1 times negative 8, which is a positive 8. So we start off by doing all of our distributions, and then we look for alike terms. Now, I like to start with the highest power and work to the smallest. So I'm going to start here with x to the fourth. And when I look around, that's the only term that contains an x to the fourth. So that's going to be by itself and just be 4 times x to the power of 4. Now, as I look around again, I see a couple of things that have x to the power of 3. So I see negative 2x to the power of 3 and negative 1x to the power of 3. If I add those together, I get negative 3x to the power of 3. And then go down another exponent, and I see that I have two terms that contain an x to the power of 2. I have a negative 9x and a positive 9x. And remember, negative 9 plus 9 is equal to 0. So there are two ways that you can write this. You can write this as a 0x, which if you put that on a test or a quiz is perfectly fine. However, if you're going to enter this answer into any type of online program, typically you don't even list the 0 times x because that's nothing. So I'm not going to list it here, but note that, if you include that on a test or a quiz, it's not considered wrong. It's just negative 9 plus 9 is 0. Then we look next and we see we only have one term that contains a single x, so we have plus 4x. And then we end with negative 16 plus 8, which ends up being a negative 8. So at this point, we've combined all terms that are similar together, and we can't combine further because those variables are not identical.